Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Daily Manchester United here on a fantastic Thursday. You might have been expecting a crossover, slight change of plan. It's coming tomorrow's episode. Today though, we're going to be talking about the preview of that Crystal Palace game and two sides that probably need this victory more than most, 12th and 13th respectively for Manchester United and Crystal Palace. And to unpack the match with me alongside Kieran McGinley is the Mr. Niall Hannigan. Niall, welcome along.
Thank you, Kieran. How's things?
Yeah, good. I was got caught up in the moment of watching match day 8, and
yes,
I'm looking forward to that chaos tomorrow when we're a part of it.
I know. Yeah, I was watching it myself, and I was a bit disappointed. You know, I was like, these are the nights that we should really be involved in back in the day, in the childhood days, and look where we are now. Looking forward to a Thursday night of golassos, but it's where we are, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And a chance to seal top 8 tomorrow. It should be good. Tomorrow when we call this, it will be tonight when you listen to this. Got to get into that habit. Never mind. We'll learn. We'll live and learn, eh? We're only nearly 100 episodes into the Daily Manchester United. It's episode 99 today. And yeah, we were just talking about the pre-show before the curtain came up on this episode, Niall, that these two teams have been really in rough form, but especially Palace. You were saying you're not sure what to make heads or tails of them coming into this one.
Yeah, definitely. We mentioned before about Palace last year, really exciting team. Had some massive results, and obviously they've lost a couple of players. Like, I mean, Elise is a huge loss from last year. In terms of their attacking talent going forward. They brought in the likes of Nketiah to try and bolster that again, but just hasn't really seemed to pay off for them. I think if you were to ask me at the back end of last season how they get on this season, I'd say, well into the top half. So it has been, I suppose, from their perspective, quite a disappointing season, and have kind of gone under the radar a bit, where I kind of had to check to see where they were. I obviously knew they weren't going that well, but I wasn't sure exactly, just not really keeping up to date with them as much. So like you said, both teams desperate for a win. A real 6-pointer. Like, I always never thought United would be involved in a 6-pointer, but 6-pointer at the weekend. So we're trying to make this as interesting a preview as possible for this tight fixture at the weekend.
Oh, they're all 6-pointers though, aren't they? Eventually, they're all 6-pointers, which is terrifying. It's a terrifying concept, but this is where we are as a club right now. And I don't know if, Niall, you had a chance to listen to that sort of Wildcard Wednesday episode yesterday, where Dan and I were talking about transfers we'd like to have in. We're to keep an eye on the transfer market. A bit worrying though. I think we have got 2 signings over the line, one of them being Patrick Dorgu, as confirmed by Fabrizio Romano, get his name right. But it's been a worryingly quiet window, not just for Manchester United, but across the entire Premier League.
Yeah, it's just like everyone in the league is trying to figure out their PSR for the summer, and trying to line up their English talent so they can kind of balance the books a bit. But I wasn't really expecting much in this January in terms of transfers, even though we need them. I think we need probably about 4 to 5 windows anyway, in terms of actually getting the players that Amorim needs, considering the amount of investment that was made in the summer as well. It doesn't really matter if those players pay off or not. All that money went out the door, so you kind of have to make do with it until the end of the year. And I'm kind of glad as well they didn't go overboard in January, because there's a couple of signings that you can pick out in that window that pay off, but most of the time, some of them are cup tied, or some of them you're kind of overpaying to get it over the line. So I just hope that they have a bit of a strategy going into the summer and kind of aligning with this new formation that we're looking to play. Yeah, the Dorgu one, left wing back, I've only seen clips, to be honest. I'm sure Dan on yesterday's podcast or this week, he's our expert and our chief scout at the United podcast here. He always seems to know about these upcoming players. But I don't know. Obviously, it's a position that we needed to bolster a bit. I see that Luke Shaw as well is rumored to be back in training. I saw a meme today on X about the Dwayne The Rock Johnson breaking off his cast off his arm, and it was Shaw whenever he sees a left back being signed at United, he's suddenly available again. But time to stick on the boots. So look, we'll see what happens. We now have 3 left wing backs or left backs on the books, conventional ones anyway. And to be honest, I just hope he's decent, because at this stage there's just been so many disappointments.
Yeah, we were talking about it yesterday about he's able to play on the left wing back role, but also as a right winger going forward, and how that might be quite an odd mix of it. But actually, it's not actually that wild if you think about it. I had a night to sleep on it, and actually it's not that wild attacking wise. If you want Patrick Dorby to do what he what he needs to do attacking wise, makes sense to play him where he can play with his stronger foot. And likewise on the left wing back, sure, if he needs to make a tackle, he'll probably want to lead with his stronger foot. So actually there's a method to this madness, if you like. But yeah, as you say, Chief Scout Dan has given him a seal of approval. So we'll see how it goes.
Glad to hear.
And look, Dan put him in our top 10 French players. Lenny Euro, he put him in his top French players when we did that on
ever, or we have 10 French players currently.
Oh no, 10. ever. And he hadn't played a league game.
Yeah, but he loves doing this because he did this with Euro as well. Before Euro kicked the ball, he was like top 10 signings or something.
Sorry, that's what I meant. I misspoke. But yeah. He's a visionary, Dan.
He is
a visionary.
Yeah, we love him. He's actually, he should be CEO of this podcast, to be honest, because he's got that kind of vision mentality,
Here we are. We're talking about one of our podcasters rather than the team. That's how we're just so good.
Yeah.
We are so good as a team.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the team that actually has to play the football. It's been, let's say, rough. It's been a rough January. God, this month has gone on for so long. That draw against Arsenal, or at least the draw against Liverpool, felt so long ago. The FA Cup draw as well against Arsenal and the penalty shootout. It just seems like it was ages away. I don't know whether that's January or whether it was just a case of we're just trying to roll through these matches as best we can.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I mean, watching United feels pretty long anyway, but also January, it comes around every year and it's always surprised you of how long it is, So you'd think we kind of learn at this stage, but yeah, I mean, it's been a rough January, but it's been a rough year. I mean, Christmas was the roughest of rough. You have Newcastle, Bournemouth, and Wolves all in a couple of periods there where all you're looking at is football, and it's the last thing you want to be seeing is just your team getting played off the park. But look, I don't know. It's difficult to find positives, but we have to stay positive, so we do.
Somehow we're staying positive, somehow. And when we come back for the second part, I'm sure we'll be looking more into maybe how we expect the team to line up and potentially what we could expect from the game. We'll be back after this.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
This really is a fixture that just lights up any calendar. The last time we faced Palace away at Selhurst Park, it was an astonishing 0-0. Niall, surely it can only get better. That said, this is
Kieran,
United we're talking about.
I was going to say that line, and then you'd be like, no, but you always say, surely it can't get any worse than this, and then we end up quoting Mick McCarthy on every episode of the podcast.
Cue the clip.
I don't know. I mean, is it better than getting battered 3-0 in Sellers Park with Casemiro playing for Crystal Palace 2 years ago? Probably. But yeah, let's hope for if we can get on a bit of a run here. Hopefully tonight. Sorry, we we'll get the win in the Europa League in the Golasso Thursday. And we're on 2 p.m. on Sunday, so a bit of a tight turnaround. In terms of how the team will line up. What do you think? I assume you'll go with the strongest team in the Europa League fixture and then maybe try and keep a bit of consistency and go with the same team on Sunday, or what do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder how Ruben is going to approach this. Surely the league has to take a big priority. Europa League wise, even with a loss, we could still secure top 8. It's not out of the question. He might actually play a rotated side against FCSB in order to make sure he has the strongest side ready for Crystal Palace. Because at this point, I've said on a previous podcast, we could go on a great run in the Europa League, but if we're constantly having to battle relegation, if we're constantly have to battle Thursday night football, with this sort of battle to just make sure we stay afloat, that could be an unnecessary distraction. That being said, I quite like winning games. It gets quite addictive when you're winning games. So you want to win every game you come up against. So I predict a rotated side. I predict a Casemiro Ericsson midfield against FCSB as one last chance, one last roll of the dice. But I don't expect that against Palace. I think Amram's learned his lesson that the Premier League, you can't have that pairing together. It just has not got the pace that you need in the Premier League. You might be able to get away with it in certain games, in very certain games, but not when it comes to the Premier League. That lack of pace really came back to bite us against Newcastle.
Yeah, it's a good point. He's coming up against teams that he's never even heard of in the Premier League, and they're battering us. So I think he's not taking it for granted anymore. So, let's do a bit of a stab then at the team for Palace. Obviously the same formation. But yeah, I'd say that there will be a lot of changes for the Thursday night game. So I'd say probably close to the strongest team. So maybe across the back, De Ligt, Maguire, and Martinez, or do you think Euros maybe get a place in there?
I think Euro will start the Europa League game. I think he'll be on the bench for this for the Palace game. That would be my sort of prediction. The question is, I think Bayindir starts the Europa League game. I think Onana starts the Premier League game.
Yep.
But it's surprisingly close between those two at the moment. It really is. And I don't know if it should be that close. But I agree. De Ligt, Maguire, Martinez, back three. That seems to be the strongest back three we have at the moment. I've kept saying that we've only had 5 centre-backs at the club. I completely forgot about Johnny Evans. I listened to the podcast this morning just to be like, make sure I don't say anything stupid. And I say a stupid thing of forgetting Johnny Evans. I mean, how could I have done that? Well, for all he's done to the club, the 37-year-old is still going strong. But I don't expect him to start now. I think Amram realises that he is pretty much emergency backup. And I think Johnny realises that as well. I think when he first signed that 3-month contract to bring him back, he was sort of thinking, I'll just play in the reserves, keep my fitness up. Oh, I'm in the first team. Oh, here we go.
I'm playing City. Yeah.
And I'm starting.
Yeah. I'm putting in man of the match performances, I think.
In fairness, why not? But I think, Johnny Evans is getting a well-deserved break now, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you were doing your own Monday Night Football on your performances on the podcast, Kieran, just to do a bit of analysis, pick out areas where you can improve on. That's what we like to see. Dan would be proud as our CEO of the podcast.
What can I say? Look, this is a touch screen behind me.
Yes.
I can drag and drop any way I want. Next, I'll be doing my own ref watch on me.
Yeah.
What decisions did I get right? Oh, geez.
Just stop it there. Just stop it there.
And you see here. Yeah.
Here, Johnny Evans.
Evans, circle Johnny. All right, we've discussed about the defenders and got slightly off topic. Midfield then. Oh, I guess you could call it midfield if you include the wing backs. How do you expect to line up? I don't know if Dorgu is going to be ready in terms of fitness-wise, but it's possible.
Yeah, I think just in terms of what we've seen so far, I'd say Mazraoui and Dalot. It was interesting, they actually swapped sides in the previous game where Dalot actually went to the preferred right wing back. And I think you get more out of him. Like, I think Dalot is an interesting one because he's good, but he's not like top. And I think playing him left wing back is like so difficult for him. Like he's already not in a conventional right back, but now he's also on his wrong side and he doesn't use his left foot. So I think giving him the right wing back gives him a bit more confidence actually taking players on, and he's got a good delivery. So I'm kind of happier with him on the right. Mazraoui we know is not amazing going forward anyway, but really smart player, good enough technically as well. And I'm kind of happy with him playing on the left. So I'd say those two as the wing backs.
It makes sense, yeah. I think do what we've been doing previously. I think with that five at the back or three at the back with the wing backs, makes sense to keep what we know at the moment. Now, here's the thing: holding midfielders. Ugarte obviously had to be brought off against Fulham in our last game. Did pick up a little bit of a knock, so he might be a doubt for the game, but I think he's done a fantastic job, and I think he's probably one of the first names on the team sheet in the heart of that midfield. But who do you start alongside him? I know Amram's been experimenting, dropping Fernandes deeper, and maybe almost like a Regista style. He's able to just press forward when he needs to or when he wants to try and join the attack. But there are other players that could play there. Kobbie Mainoo, for example, in that deeper role. I mean, you could even, if you wanted to, you could bring in the likes of Ericsson to just try and stay at the heart of the midfield, but try and make from a deeper. Don't expect him to press up so much and play Fernandes further forward. I mean, how do you sort of predict that will line up?
I think he'll stick with Bruno in there beside Ugarte. I think he's trying something. And I think he'll try for another while yet. We spoke about this before. I actually think it could work if Bruno keeps his discipline. He drops in there anyway. We've been having issues with having any sort of control in midfield on the ball in those games. Ugarte and Mainoo, I'm just not sure if that's the answer. The Ugarte point, I've had it out with a couple of people on the podcast here. I'm not convinced at all with Ugarte, but I think that's just the sign of where we are at the moment, where you're like, yeah, he has to play because what else are we going to do? But I'm still not convinced. And I think the Mainoo conversation is interesting. I think there's also a bit of experimentation over the next few months, possibly of him playing in the further two positions than the sitting midfield. Just because of his kind of technical ability, and I think he's a bit more creative, not necessarily because I think he just gets caught out in the deeper two in terms of legs. It's very important when you're playing. You mainly play against three players in there, and you have to have legs to be able to deal with it. So there could be a world where he gets kind of tested out in the two number 10s. But yeah, I think he'll go with Ugarte and Bruno as the deep line two again, and stick with that for a few weeks and see how they get on.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see that. And Niall and I have three more players to predict. But before that, we'll have a quick message. We'll be back after this.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
So 3 players left in the lineup, your sort of 2 attacking midfielders, if you like, and your man up top. Silly not to suggest Ahmad in this scenario. It's possibly our stalwart for the season, and we're pinning all the hopes of maybe top half on Ahmad. He's been sensational, hasn't he?
Yeah, our shining light, our beacon of light this season. It's just sad that he's in this environment. Like, he should be, if United were where they were, he should be like, our kind of third winger in a way, where like he's kind of coming off the bench and putting in brilliant performances, and he's a lot of people to learn from. But I'm sorry, Ahmad, but we are totally reliant on you at the moment. Like, you better do something, because there's not much else happening. But yeah, he's sensational, and spoke with Cormac about this on a different episode. He nearly is faster running with the ball. He's so comfortable on the ball. It's like it's tied to his left foot. It's brilliant to watch, and I just love how direct he is as well. So many wingers these days across all clubs around the world, terrified to take on their man in case they lose the ball. It's always run down the wing, cut back into the centre midfield, and just keep going around the side. And it's really refreshing to kind of see a bit of a throwback where he puts the fear god into fullbacks when he just takes them on, and it's brilliant to watch. And it stands out even more when you kind of see how lackluster it is in general with the team.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's a case of Ahmad's been good. He has been good, and he's put in some really good performances, but he can get isolated very easily.
Yeah.
If teams know how to stop him, he cannot perform, and that's to be expected. You can't pin all of your hopes on one player unless they are absolutely one of the best players in the world.
Yeah.
You're talking Messi and Ronaldo could change the game by themselves. And Ahmad, we don't have anyone in that squad that could be close to world class. I think the closest we come is Bruno Fernandes. But even then, I wouldn't say he was of the world class category. Close, but not world class. But yeah, he's just had a fantastic season, and I hope he gets another goal here, because currently I think he is our top goal scorer in the Premier League with, I think it was 6 last time I checked there, and 6 goals.
That's madness.
That is madness. We've played, how many games have we played now? 23, and our top goal scorer I think has 6 goals.
I'd be interested to see how many games he started, because he hasn't, there was a while where he was not being picked at all from Ten Hag. It is mental. And I mean, last year was bad in terms of our scoring tally from our forwards, but I mean, it's simple. We're 12th in the league. It makes sense. I'm actually surprised we were 12th in the league with our top goal scorer having 6 goals. When you look at the team and you kind of take away the Man United jersey, we look like a very average team and look like we're kind of relying on a couple of wingers, a bit like Palace, I suppose, but back in the day with Zaha, and just kind of give the ball to him and hope for the best, and just carrying the team on his back. And he's getting fouled as much as Zaha will get fouled as well, because teams know that is the outlet, and anything good that's going to come from United comes through him.
Is this you saying close enough, welcome back, Wilfried Zaha? Is this what you're saying?
Yeah, I knew that was a dangerous kind of comparison to bring up there, because it was just we had him. It's like the whole Danny Welbeck conversation. It's we should never have got rid of Danny Welbeck, and it's we probably should have, but also he would be our best player by a mile if he was still here. So
at 34, is it? Yeah. That's something. Just want to. You asked about Ahmad. He's played in 21 matches this season in the Premier League. Started 16 of them. 6 goals, 6 assists.
16 starts, 6 goals, 6 assists.
Yes,
that's incredible. For a team that's this bad. And then what was it? He's played in 5 more off the bench. Then
yes, correct.
He's had an unbelievable run, because there was times where he played the couple of games for Ten Hag and then just couldn't get back in the team. So incredible season from him. It's just mental how we're pinning the hopes on him. I mean, if you predicted this at the start of the season, you'd be like what has happened? That Ahmad is our best player by a mile. You'd be like, it was a bit like the Dallo season last year.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, I mean, early favourites for our player of the season, and yeah, so far we don't have the greatest record for the season after for who we pick as, say, player of the season.
I don't even think there's a short list. I think it's just him.
I think it's just him. It's just a piece of paper and it's just Ahmad on it.
Yeah, it's just his name.
He's got my vote.
Yeah.
Right, we should probably talk about the other 2 players we expect to start here. So on the other side then, kind of your left-hand side, I think it's safe to say Rashford's not in this team anymore. I think it's safe to say he's not going to be starting any games. He's not even making the bench for some of these games.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say it's Garnacho on the left-hand side. Has put in some good performances recently. He's picked up an assist as well, I think quite recently as well. I think he is a threat down that left-hand side, but as much as he has been a good player for us, he's got bags of potential, but he seems to get in his own head a little bit, and he starts to second guess himself, and that's the worst thing you can do as a footballer, is start to second guess your own abilities and start to second guess what you should be doing. And I feel like this pressure has got to him slightly, but over the last couple of games he's been doing quite good, so we should praise him for it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point about getting into his own head, especially when you're an instinct player. Once you start overthinking it, then you're in trouble. And he definitely is that type of player, a player that would thrive on counterattacks, taking shots on, without lots of time. Once you start doing that, you're in trouble. But yeah, I mean, he's been decent. It's just we have slim pickings as well. Who's actually competing with him? No one really, to be honest. Like, which is just it's just where we are at the moment. We kind of have to go with it until we look to reinforce. Whether we can bring someone in from the academy, whether Rashford can kind of turn that situation around, and just on that, like it's interesting because it's very split, I think, in terms of whether people support Amram/United or Rashford. And like Rashford and Garnacho were left out at the same time on the same weekend, and Garnacho's turned it around. Like, obviously, he's not just taking a grudge out on random players for the sake of it. You know, if you prove in training that you've got the right attitude, you can come back and you can end up starting games and you can get praised by him. So, you know, it would be interesting if both of them neither came back, but then if one of them's coming back and the other one's not, you kind of have to go with what the manager's saying on this. Like, so it's just disappointing that it's kind of finishing like this. I hope it does turn around, but yeah, it's not a good look at the moment.
Yeah, so many teams are in for Marcus Rashford anyway. I think at this point, I think Ineos are ready to cash in what they can on Marcus Rashford for the sake of PSR, which it would be a sad end to what has been a phenomenal player. 130 plus goals for Marcus Rashford for Manchester United. And you hark back to the days of, whoa, what's it now, 10 years ago? 10 years ago. Honestly. I remember making his debut every single time he scored, you know, when it came to the Premier League, when it came to the Europa League, heck, even the Champions League, I think on his debut, he managed to get a goal. And that was about a year and a bit later, was it? Either way.
It was Van Gaal,
yeah. So even scored on his England debut, a League Cup debut. I have to think back if it was the FA Cup debut he also scored on, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. It's a sad end. We've got one more player then. Who starts up top? And Niall, this has been a bit 50-50 from Amarim. This one doesn't seem. See, this one seems to go by the least amount of logic because whatever way we start to play, both of them seem to struggle, especially recently with long balls over the top. And you would think someone like Højlund, who is quicker, is able to try and get in behind, but it doesn't seem to be working like that.
Yeah, it is. It's honestly like one of them comes off after 60 minutes, plays poor. The other one comes on after 30 minutes, plays really well. Then they start the next game, and it's just this. It's the same cycle repeated again, and they just keep taking each other's places. And it's strange because they're totally different players, the two of them. So like, you know, we're trying to build up a style of play. All the players kind of getting used to each other, and the two of them couldn't be more polar opposite. Like Xerxes can't run in behind, and Højlund can do nothing but run in behind. So it's like it's frustrating because it's like we're not building any sort of cohesion at all here, switching them around. So honestly, it could be anyone who started the last game. I think Højlund did, so probably Xerxes against Palace then.
Unless Xerxes starts against FCSB. That's what I'm thinking. But both of them have 2 goals in the Premier League so far this season. Both of them.
Yeah, and Xerxes had one in his first game.
Yeah.
Got one in the 4-0. I think it was one of Amarim's first home games. That was I think that's the last game Rashford played, the 4-0.
And he also, and as a highlight, he also scored in the penalty shootout against Arsenal. That he took the last penalty as well, so fair play to him. He was under a lot of stick at that time, and for him to slot that away, that's the perfect response. But I just think, both of them have been struggling in fairness, but it seems like neither of them are getting many shots away, and this is what it's boiling down to. A lot of us, through the shots that are happening, aren't coming through our strikers. Yeah. You've got Xerxes who likes to drop deeper, and I do wonder if you start playing in one of those attacking midfield roles, that how well would he do? He's able to hold up the ball. He's not got a bad passing range on him either, but it seems weird how he's not quite a false 9. But he's not quite an attacking midfielder. He's sort of caught in between. I see what he means now by a 9.5, and it's just not working at the moment, unfortunately.
No, it's not working. And to be honest, the shot thing, I don't even blame the strikers. I blame our style of play and how we play it. Like, there's literally nothing created for them at all. Like, that's why United are hard to watch at the moment, because the goals are few and far between. That's been an issue. You can see it across the stats. You watch the game, a lot of periods, long periods of the game, it's kind of knock it around the back 3, and then some sort of a hopeful ball, and then there's a big gap, and it's hard to watch. We never have sustained pressure in the opposition half where we can actually create those chances for the strikers, so they're normally feeding off scraps. So I don't even blame them for the shots, but sometimes they don't help themselves as well with opportunities that we do get. So it's there's a lot of issues. The forward area is just one of them, but it's difficult because you look around and you're trying to see like how this set of players will fit into the profiles needed for this formation, and it's like square pegs and round holes. Like, the type of players we need for the number 10s, I don't think we have them. Garnacho plays, but he literally plays on the touchline like he's playing left wing anyway. It's not the role. When Bruno was there, in the other 10, he would drop in wherever he can. He's not like fast or kind of a dribbler. We don't really have a player. Ahmad suits the 10, but we don't have enough of them. And then even the deep line midfielders, you'd want two absolute athletes in there, and we don't have that either. So wing backs, don't have wing backs. Like, so it's just there's a big overhaul needed. And it's not just in one area, it's pretty much across the team. But it's just crazy how we're still saying that. And I'd say you'd say that every year at United, and the amount of money that's been spent, you're like, we just need better / more players.
Yeah. On that positive note then, Niall, score prediction.
I always have to go heart over head here, or head over heart, because I always get carried away and end up saying we're going to win. It's like you're having a great week, and then there's someone coming up behind you, and it's just Man United just ruining your weekend every
knocking
weekend.
On the door.
Knocking on the door. It's Palace, lads.
Yeah. Well, look, it was also Spurs, lads.
It was Spurs, and Spurs absolutely battered us. But 1-0 United.
You know what? I was thinking the same. I was thinking 1-0 United.
We're not getting 2 goals, so it's either 1-1 or 1-0.
And we've gone for the 1-0 because, ever the optimists we are, we're predicting a United victory. Well, it has to be said, it's been a bit of a long January, made even longer by sort of, how this season has gone so far. But look at it this way. A win could put us up to 11th. You know the phrase by now.
You can't say up to 11th when we're 12th. It doesn't...
Are we going up?
Yeah, I mean, it was...
There you go.
Yeah. It was well worded. It was well worded, to be fair.
Thank
it gave me more hope. I thought we were going top half there, but
yeah. Look, we could go as high as 11th. That's about it.
We could finish Sunday on 11th.
Yeah, or we could drop down to 14th. But let's not think about that. 11th is the target heading into Sunday. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me, Niall, on what has been, well, not quite a car crash episode, but not very far away from it.
Yeah. 100%. Thanks, Kieran.
Thank you, Niall. And thank you so much as well for listening along, whether you're on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. And if you're listening along and thinking, I would love something to watch whilst I'm listening to this, well, find us on YouTube as well. Global Sports Podcast Network, LTD. The whole network is on there, and you'll be able to find the daily Manchester United playlist as well. So you can see our lovely faces. How terrifying for you. Thank you so much for listening along and watching along if you've been so kind to on YouTube. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll speak to you soon.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.